You're welcome. Let's do book chat now, and today we will be reviewing a book titled Value Shift, Learning from the Best of Two Worlds by Dr. Henry Akintunde, a general practitioner in the UK National Health Service. Now we'll be finding out why developed countries are so developed while most African nations are underdeveloped. And this is going to be virtual because we have Dr. Henry Akintunde on Zoom with us. Doctor, can you hear me? Good morning to you.
Good morning. I can hear you loud and clear.
Grand. Good to have you on the show this morning. Mind telling us exactly where your location is?
Yes, I live in Northampton, a town in the United Kingdom.
Okay, now that question is not just by chance. I'm asking because, well, in reference to this book, we need to get an idea of why you had to write a book, Value Shift, talking about learning from the best of two worlds. And I'm assuming that the other world that this book's referring to is, of course, African countries, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, so the idea behind the book is I wanted to detail my experience of living in two different worlds. I was born in Nigeria, lived my first 30 years in Nigeria, and I have now been living in the United Kingdom for 15 years. And those two worlds are quite different. One is considered to be developed, the other is still developing, and I wanted to detail my learning, especially in respect of why one is developed and the other still a developing nation.
As chronicled, or rather as highlighted in your book, exactly what are the differences when it comes to developed countries and underdeveloped countries like Africa? What have you, or what did you discover was the main factor for the differences that we find?
What I discovered may come a little bit as a surprise to you. I kind of pinned everything down or penciled it down to one main thing, and that is the premium or the value placed on lives, human lives, individual lives. The main difference I found is that in the developed world, every single citizen is valued as an individual, and the system is built around protecting and preserving that life. Unfortunately, that's not so. That's not the same thing we find in developing nations. And I talked about reasons for this in the book.
Yeah, in your very first chapter, you talked about the fact that African nations or underdeveloped countries often want to place a blame on something not going right. And very often, this blame, when they find a place to place it, is not on themselves. Can you explain that bit? Because I found it very interesting and true. But you tell us.
Yes, so that chapter I titled Exploring Africa's Convenient Beliefs. Having grown up in Nigeria, over time, I've been involved in debates, discussions. I've heard analysts give various reasons for why we remain a developing nation. And I found that most of those blames are easily put on other people. The responsibility is on other people. And it's convenient for us to do that because if we don't share in the blame, then we don't feel any sense of responsibility to do anything about it. So that chapter is about debunking those various excuses that we have given ourselves over the years.
Now, in reference to value, you also talked about the society. You talked about the African organizations as or versus what it is like in developed countries. And you also talked about the value that each individual also gives in all of this ecosystem. Let's talk about that. Where exactly is the main problem, or should I call it issue, when it comes to placing that correct value on a system?
I think the main focus would be on every individual in the constituent nations of Africa having a sense of responsibility to want to develop the nation, to see that the task of nation building is a collective responsibility, not an individual responsibility. Now, some people at different levels have more responsibility than the other. The government will take the biggest chunk of it, but the government cannot and are not ever going to be able to do it alone. There is responsibility for the family, there's responsibility for religious organizations, the educational system. So it's a task that involves everyone. And the idea of the book is for everybody to see that they have a role to play in this.
While I was reading the book, I said something to myself. I said that, especially here in Nigeria, it seems that we are already so far gone into a depraved type of system. And if we are going to be healed of that malay, I think it has to be with the new generation. I don't know if you agree with me, because curing the older generation of the ills and the system at which they are used to might be too much work. I don't know, as the author of this book, do you agree with me? That was my conclusion in any case.
I do certainly agree with you. In my mind, although I'm writing the book now, I see it as a 15 to 20-year project.
I saw that myself.
So my target audience have been mostly the young people, not only because they are the leaders of tomorrow, but they are still in their formative stage, and I'm hoping that they can grow up with this sense of the right value systems, and that becomes the prevalent value system in the society come 15, 20 years' time.
Nice, nice. Now, let's talk about change. Let's conclude by, like you concluded in the book, what must each individual actually note when it comes to change and begetting a society that we look forward to, much like we always look up to Western nations?
Yes. There are a few things that I've highlighted in the book. I think one of the most important things is for each individual to develop a national consciousness. We have to first and foremost identify and see ourselves as Nigerians before we think of ourselves as members of the constituent tribes and ethnic groups. That sense of
Pride,
not enough unity is a big problem right now. The other thing is for each person to believe that they can be a difference maker, they can be a change agent. Change is something that often starts small and builds up over time. That's another thing I want people to live with.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Henry. This is indeed a very interesting book. If you are interested in Africa itself and also being African, I think it's something that you have to read. It's The Value Shift, Learning from the Best of Two Worlds. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Henry. It was good to have you on the show today. And trust me, I'm going to be preaching about the very, very interesting notes that this book makes. We look forward to seeing more and also seeing the change that you preach as well in each and every individual. Thank you.
Thank you.